Hey people, welcome to Blu UK Jazz Dance story. Wow. I was, me and my brother, we taught ourselves to perform. We loved musicals. We used to love cabaret. We were exposed to television, and television really opened our minds to dancing. But the first people we saw self-express themselves in a creative, beautiful way, in a dignified way, with elegance and pride, was my mother and my father, my nannies, the relatives in our community. Parents dressed in very dignified clothes, and they showed elegance and pride. They're very spiritual. And they're self-expression. When you see parents freely being free-spirited, which they were, and dancing with pride, because mum is Grenadian, my dad is Jamaican. As an individual, you as an individual rise in this world with pride in who you are. And what happened, we were born in the slums of Marseille. We didn't know that was called a slum. We just thought that was a place that we were born. There was beautiful things happening. And most importantly, I wanted to share with people my story. When you look back and reflect, and it's important to reflect on your story, we never knew that it was called the slums, and we never knew that was a derrick. It was a very down and out place. The slums, to me, is where I learned love. The slums is where I learned to communicate with different cultures. Going from house to house, we were latchkey children. We were looked after in the community. That's how I see the slums. Do you know what I'm saying? As a person, I grew up engaged in a lot of creative activities because my parents were self-expressive and creative. Both had special education needs, which is important. Both came from rural families. They were both individuals who were very, very, very forthright and very focused in what they wanted to do with their families. They wanted us to get a better opportunity than they had. And they worked hard, back-to-back shifts. They went through very, very difficult period of times. And at no time did my parents moan about that situation. But the parents were very politicized. Because my dad came in 61, mum came in 61, immigrated to Britain. In 62, Jamaica got independence, so my dad had a lot of pride within him as an individual. My mum, like anybody else from the Caribbean, wanted to see the independence of their people. And it's important that people understand they were politicized, they're very spiritual, they're very sociable. They knew, one thing, they had the proper connections, they had really powerful rural connections. They brought rural values into our home and rural values into the community. And that's what West Indies brought. And they had this thing, weekend, that is when they replenish, that time is for family. So basically we transformed the slums where white people lived and other cultures lived. We were seriously about cooperating with each other, looking after each other, building camaraderie between each other, bonding with each other was huge within the Caribbean families. Yeah, so people looked after each other, supported each other. They had what is called, they saved money together, they supported each other. They're one of the key things people understand, which is not identified, because you have all these nonsense where individuals talk about blacks don't work together and all that. That's a lot of nonsense. People really need to understand. You would never be able to survive Britain with the racism that had without cooperation, supporting each other, helping each other. We had nannies. We had people who looked after people's children. People, aunties and uncles supported each other. That's how it was, and it's important for people to understand. And there were hard times. And there were hard times where parents tried to do the best that they could without their grandparents, and it was unique. We really must understand, when West Indians immigrated to Britain on a mass scale freely, it was a unique day, that day. You have to understand what I'm saying from the history. Now, one of the things is, as an individual, I moved like an adult. I could perform like an adult from very young. Yeah, I was shy, but what happened, that came, which is because of my dyslexia, but outside that, I could perform very well. And it's important that to me to note that my parents gave me their gifts. My mum was very athletic, and my dad was very athletic, and they passed them gifts on to us through nurturance, through sowing small seeds. My mum used to race us all the time. Yeah, all the time. My mum used to race us with the pram. And that served to be beneficial. Because when it came to athletics, me and my brother excelled in that. My mum said, ready, set, go, boom. All that training she did with us, that came to be the normal thing, how we used to run with her. Came to be the normal things that would happen when you went to school. Ready, set, go, you're ready. You already knew what that meant. So my parents played a lot of games very cleverly. My parents shaped us to have adult focus and concentration from very young by the games we played. You know, like in the home to play teacher, be director, producer, and we start to do these things. So we put ourselves in leadership positions is one of the key things I want to share with people. Is part of the growth I had as an individual growing up. I had aspirations to be a leader from the beginning, to be a barrister, to be an entertainer and be a cricketer. And that's how I viewed the world. I was very politicized. I was very spiritual. Why? Because my parents politicized spiritual. I was caring. Why? Because parents caring. I had emotional intelligence because my parents. Not to think, I had to always from the beginning, I wanted to be a barrister because I wanted to protect others. Do you understand? From the beginning, our parents instilled, you don't come into this world just for yourself. You come into this world to support others, enable others to have a better life. That is my parents immigrated to Britain. That's our lives. And when people talk about blacks are mean and they have no care for others, they don't share, I just thought that's a lot of nonsense. That's a lot of nonsense. And the reason that's happened because we are not the key writers of our own stories. And I'm using this opportunity through video to talk about my story. And the more that you reflect on it and research it, every year you have to do this, because what happened, information is hidden. But what happened is my story is related to the social development, the politics, economics, technological environment, legal developments in Britain. Do you understand? And where I lived in the slums, went to suburban primary school, Catholic, then eventually went to lived in suburban Old Trafford, just around the corner from a school. But we didn't want to move from the slums. So that whole trauma, the traumas I've lived in this country, social, physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, political, economic, technological environment, are important. But at the same time, celebration of myself is important. And that's been missed because sometimes we get into a one-dimensional story of the hardships we've been through, etc. Yes, I had hardships. I'm going to talk about that. But I want to talk about the joys of what dance did for me and what the arts did for me and how I got into the arts. Because my father used to draw in the home, and my dad used to do design in the home. All his sons have qualification in the arts. I'm the first person ever to go on to qualify myself as an arts manager, administrator and business manager. Where I got that love is from my parents. They never expected me to do that a job, and I never expected to qualify myself as that. I never expected to go to dance college full time ever, and that happened through amazing situations. Was about choice. Was that time when I went to dance college, basically I had given time to dance, wanting to be an RAF pilot. It looks like I'm not going to be an RAF pilot. You use your gifts. My parents told me to use the gifts. In the Bible it told you to use your gifts and talents to open doors. It made sense. So I used them gifts. Yeah? So the journey of dance has been amazing. But people didn't know how I used dance. People thought I always wanted to be a professional dancer. And, you followed the normal road to be a dancer. I did not. I followed a number of alternative roads to be a dancer. I always wanted to be in musicals. And in 1981, what happened was I started to take my formal classes in tap, in modern dance, in ballet, because that was a prerequisite to do stage jazz. It's not something I wanted to do at that time, but I did it. Secretly, people didn't know. But people didn't know secretly. I was training myself as well as going to classes. I only went to class once a week. And what I did, I studied the dance. I got information about dance, studied it, went to libraries and etc. And what happened, the beautiful thing that happened during that period from 81 to 86, I indulged myself in a wide range of dances. Working as a professional dancer, having my own group, avant-garde UK Jazz Dance group that was unique and it was different. And one of the key things that was important for us was presenting a portrait of dignity, elegance and pride. And that led us to wear tuxedos. Yeah, tuxedo top hat, tuxedo and bowler hat. Yeah, and what happened, it led to our group winning best dressed dance group. And then what happened, same period, best dance group, then me winning award for being the best dressed dancer and dancer at Placemate 7, because Placemate 7 was a club we used to go to, had 7 rooms, that really inspired people to dress up. So you had goths, new romantics, people came there with the clothes anyway, but what happened, great incentives were created for you to dress up, because there's always competitions that they had. Every week they had some form of prize for people who were the best dressed couple, dress group. You know what I mean? That was very brilliant placement seminar. I loved it because actually they were the only place that actually did that, and that essentified vintage dress. But we dressed in the dress to present a portrait of dignity, elegance, and pride. It was important for people to understand. And what happened outside, people viewed us dressing in the clothes as pretentious, being pretentious. And it's important because what happened was, when I've travelled throughout the world, my clothes attract people, amazing, progressive and forward-thinking people. I'm walking through Germany. People say, yo, do you want to come to a party tonight? I like the way you dress. I can see you're serious into what you're doing. It always brought conversations. And obviously people seeing my dress knew that I was into jazz. Said, yo, this is underground. And what happens, you go throughout the world, jazz is underground. I've never been invited to a mainstream sort of party to do with jazz. Do you understand it in that way? It's like underground activities when I've been anywhere in the world. Being in the Caribbean, there's always someone who's involved in jazz. Oh, we've got some jazz men here, this and that. Going to Europe, do you know there's some jazz people? Boom, and you go to a little house and underground. Do you understand? I'm not saying I've been to mainstream things, but it's always that underground. There's always been an underground jazz movement. And what happened, you find that they're very artistic, very, very progressive in the learning. And that's one of the key things I wanted to share with individuals through my story. Because what happened, jazz made me progressive in my learning, forward thinking. It made me more open to explore and experiment with wider ways of learning. And what happened was, I engaged in that because I was a person with dyslexia, not knowing that. And what happened was, I needed to learn, and I was encouraged by my parents, who, my dad was dyslexic, unknown to him. My mum had special education needs, unknown to her. The only way they could learn, they couldn't learn directly from the mainstream way. They had to create their own ways. They encouraged me to create my own ways. So being in jazz opened me up to exploring wider ways of learning. Do you understand? And jazz opened me up to, there's no definitive way to be a jazz musician or jazz dancer, because people came from the slums, no education, and learned to be dancers, learned to be composers, learned to be musicians. Blu UK Jazz Dance.